Star Wars 7x7 episode 2997. Let's talk about Rogue Squadron because there's been some news of sorts, and yet it's a little confusing, so let's talk about what is happening. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, Rogue Squadron, there were announcements by various Hollywood trade publications that claim it has been removed from the Disney release calendar. Now, there is a Disney release calendar somewhere, like an actual calendar, and I used to be able to find it on Disney's website. They had a stash of PDFs that had all of these things, but I cannot find it, and none of these articles are actually linking to the physical calendar that shows all the dates and the changes and whatnot, so that is driving me a little bit crazy. But let's take it at face value, which is that these various Hollywood trade publications are saying Rogue Squadron is no longer in the December 2023 date on Disney's release calendar. And further to that, the reporting states that the 2025 date and the 2027 date are still on the calendar, however they're listed as TBD, so we don't necessarily know whether Rogue Squadron is going into one of those spots, or whether Taika Waititi or Kevin Feige or Rian Johnson or whoever you want to throw into the mix for this is going to get either of those two slots. We just don't know. Now, here's another thing that we don't know, and I gotta say, a lot of this report is going to be about things that we don't know, and that on its face sounds like, well then why are we doing it? But on the other hand, it is important because you're going to see a lot of conclusions being jumped to that aren't necessarily jumpable, right? The logic isn't necessarily there just yet. For example, you remember when there had been discussions about rumors about an ObiWan Kenobi movie, right? And Stephen Daldry was supposed to be attached to it, and then suddenly it was like, no, there's not going to be an ObiWan Kenobi movie. And we could have been like, oh man, but it turned out that they were converting it to a Disney Plus series. So yeah, an entirely different thing. So just because the movie situation went away doesn't necessarily mean the story situation goes away. It just means that there's a lot more that is happening behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know about. The last official word that we had that had anything to do with Rogue Squadron came back in May. Kathleen Kennedy said in an interview that Patty Jenkins was taking the script and developing it further, and that they were kind of setting it aside for the moment. So yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean the movie's been canceled, which is something that I'm seeing in online conversations. The fact that the removal of the movie from the schedule means that the movie has been canceled, and that isn't necessarily the case. And in a similar situation, Rian Johnson gave an interview recently where he said that the Star Wars trilogy that he has talked about, that Lucasfilm announced a few years back, that's not gone away. It's something that he just doesn't have the opportunity to work on right now, and he's still having regular conversations with Kathleen Kennedy about it. So again, all we know is the one thing, which is that Rogue Squadron does not appear on the Disney movie release schedule for December of 2023. What that actually means, the last we knew is that Patty Jenkins is doing further development on the script, and it is still being worked on. So if they are still working on the script, that should mean that they fully intend to go forward with this at some point in the future. Whether it's a movie, whether it's a Disney Plus show, who knows, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's canceled, and we can't really fairly jump to that conclusion. Meanwhile, it's probably fair to say that Disney, Lucasfilm's parent company, is much more intently focused on the success of Disney Plus. So you'd imagine that means Kathleen Kennedy and company are also more intently focused on Andor and Mandalorian Season 3 and Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte, etc., ad infinitum. And so yes, perhaps the theatrical side of things is taking a bit of a backseat as a result. So that's the deal with the whole Rogue Squadron shenanigans. They'll work out whatever they need to work out in due time. And in the meantime, we've got a whole boatload of Star Wars storytelling we can enjoy coming up. So I'm not particularly worried. Hopefully you aren't either. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always. And may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.